We're at George Washington University, where they're having a conference they call the Students for Liberty. I'm puzzled by what the heck that means, because I sure never thought about it when I was your age. And when I went to college, I was brainwashed into being a liberal. I went to Princeton in 1969, where they taught me that there were problems in the world, and now we had figured out that the answers were in government, because you could get the smartest people in one room and they could figure out a solution. And all they had to do was take money from rich people and share it with the poor, and we'd fix poverty. And that's just what all my professors said and what we all believed. And I'm curious how you, at your young age, figured out far quicker than I did how that doesn't work. But let me start by just telling my story. Coming out of that liberal college, I went to work on television by accident and was working in a newsroom. Never thought I'd stay there. And I took this job in television, and I became a consumer reporter. So I covered what other reporters weren't doing, and that was business and psychology, medicine and consumerism. And also it fit my bias. I saw that business was out there ripping people off. And I understood that capitalism was okay. It brought us some stuff. But I had been taught that it was cruel and unfair. This is why government has to intervene. Anacin was advertising, Anacin is a tension reliever. All it is aspirin plus caffeine. People were getting injured on the job. We got to have OSHA, protect the workers. Companies were selling lose weight while you sleep pills. Got to punish those people. Got to get government on the case. I'd read Upton Sinclair in college, The Jungle. Meatpacking was disgusting. We're all going to be poisoned except for those government inspectors being there. It all just made sense to me for a while. But then I started to see things that didn't add up. Yes, we have an OSHA to protect the workers, and workplace injuries have dropped steadily since OSHA was created. But then a researcher looked at workplace injuries from before OSHA, and surprise, it turned out the slope of the line was the same. Things were getting better before government. Government was like someone who jumps in front of a parade and pretends to be leading the parade. But in truth, things get better when people are free. As they get richer, they care more about safety. And companies don't want to hurt their workers, if only because they'd have to pay more to retrain them. I saw that food wasn't safe because of government regulation. I went to a chicken plant, and I saw the union government inspectors doing their job at the chicken plant. There they were, watching each bird as it went across the assembly line. And this was just while our cameras were on. They might have been sleeping when we weren't there, but they were looking for bacteria with their eyes. And now and then there was a particularly slimy bird going by, and they would pull it off the line. But in an age of microbiology, they were still looking with their eyes, because that's how they did it 50 years ago, and government doesn't change. That wasn't making us safer. I soon realized that what made us safer is that the food company didn't want to get a bad reputation. In an open society, publicity protects us. It's because the free market works. It's because the way to get really rich in a free society is to serve your customers well. That's how Bill Gates got rich. He brought us something we didn't have before. And that there are scams, but the market is far better at policing it than clumsy government. If you rip somebody off, somebody nearby will offer that same service without ripping people off, and they'll get all your customers. That takes care of it better than government. But nobody in my business seemed to understand that. So then I started trying to read about it. I don't know how you learned about liberty, and I looked at the New York Times and the lefty press that we were reading, and it was all about, got to have much more government doing everything. And then I turned to the conservative press, and the conservative press was all upset about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and upset about homosexuality, and it just didn't make sense to me. I finally discovered Reason magazine. You know about it. And that was an epiphany for me. It was like, wow, these people get it. Wow, they really get it much better than I do. And suddenly I saw I wasn't alone. There were other people who get this. And I congratulate you on getting it. Someone who got it before I did and understands it much better than I do is David Bose of the Cato Institute, the Washington think tank that focuses on liberty. So I'd like you to add to this. What brought you around?
Thanks, John. And thanks all of you. John talks about coming from the left, having been a left liberal and come to see that government regulation, government spending weren't doing the things that he had hoped they would, that he had thought they did. I came from the right. I was sort of a constitutional conservative when I was growing up. I don't know exactly how that happened. Family influence, I guess. So I was always skeptical of that kind of big government, of overspending and exceeding the Constitution. But when I started reading conservative magazines and books, I started to discover that conservatives talked a lot about freedom, but when the rubber met the road, they were in favor of a lot of kinds of government regulation and intrusion in people's personal lives too. So I came to realize that I wasn't a conservative, but I knew I wasn't a big government liberal, and I figured out then that I was a libertarian, and I started reading things like Ayn Rand and Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek and Reason magazine, and I got involved in all of this, and I'm so glad I did, because freedom is the most important political value we have. And one of the reasons is that it underlies all the other great things that we want in our lives. Freedom makes possible economic growth. It makes possible a better environment. It makes possible people living together in peace, because they're not going around trying to tell each other how to live. They're not saying you have to pray my way or go to school my way, smoke my way, drink my way, all those kinds of things. We say leave it to the private sector, leave it to individuals. Freedom allows people to craft their own lives, to make their own decisions, to shape the kind of life they want. And so it's good to have the libertarian idea represented on campus. And this is just amazing. I've never seen a student libertarian gathering this big. This is tremendous. I'm just delighted to be here. Thanks for everything you do.